It was ridiculous, borderline insane, that a stranger had covered his entire apartment with paintings of me. Yet there I was, standing in his studio, surrounded by versions of my own face I had never given permission for. The kicker? We had never met before tonight. His eyes, stormy gray and almost unnervingly calm, followed me as I stumbled through the maze of canvases. I should have left, called the cops. But something about the way he looked at me like I was both a miracle and a curse rooted me to the spot. The story begins in Brooklyn, where life is both too fast and too suffocating. My name is Ethan, 23, stuck in a job that eats my soul and pays just enough rent for a shoebox apartment with flickering lights. I was used to being invisible. That was my superpower, surviving by blending in. Until I saw his work. An art exhibit in a rundown warehouse had drawn a crowd bigger than expected. Everyone whispered about the mysterious painter who refused interviews, who never showed his face, who only signed his name with a messy scrawl, L. The moment I stepped in, I froze. The walls were filled with me, my eyes staring back, my jawline, my smile, my hands painted with so much intimacy it felt indecent. Each canvas revealed details even I hadn't noticed about myself, expressions I didn't know I wore. It wasn't admiration. It was obsession. My first thought was anger. Who the hell did he think he was? My second was fear. How had he even seen me? And my third, the one that stuck, was a strange, painful pull in my chest. Because no matter how much it scared me, those paintings didn't feel like lies. They felt like someone had cracked my skin open and poured my soul onto the canvas. I met him a week later. It wasn't fate. It was my stubbornness. I waited outside the gallery 3 nights in a row until he finally appeared, hood up, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, looking like he wanted to vanish into the concrete. "Why me?" I blurted, stepping in his way. He froze. The hood slipped back, revealing a face that looked both too young and too tired. His voice was quiet, like he hadn't spoken to another human in weeks. "Because you're the only thing I can't forget." His name was Adrian. 24. Painter, recluse, liar, or maybe truth-teller, depending on how you looked at it. He swore he had never spoken to me before, never followed me, never crossed paths intentionally. He claimed he just saw me once. Years ago. A train ride, maybe. A coffee shop. He wasn't sure. But since then, his art had been nothing but me. I wanted to hate him, wanted to call him a creep and walk away. But the way he said "itra," trembling, like confession, made it impossible to dismiss. And then there was the art itself. It didn't feel like obsession, felt like devotion. And no one had ever looked at me like that before. Of course, it wasn't simple. It never is. Being around Adrian was like standing near a fire. Warm, dangerous, addictive. His studio was a chaos of colors and shadows, but he moved in it like a man who had found his church. He painted with desperation, as if losing the image of me would mean losing himself. He was intense, moody, sometimes unbearable. Days would pass where he wouldn't return my calls. Then suddenly he'd drag me to his studio at 3 a.m. just to show me a half-finished sketch. I told myself I wasn't falling for him, that it was unhealthy, unstable, maybe even toxic. But then there were moments, small, almost hidden, where the world softened. Like the night he made me sit for him, not as a model but as me. We sat too close on the paint-stained floor, my knee brushing his, the silence heavy with things neither of us dared to say. He reached for my hand absent-mindedly, his fingers stained blue and red, and I let him hold it. No one had ever touched me like that. Not possessive, not careless, just like I mattered. But love, if that's what it was, came with shadows. Adrian had demons, ones he refused to name. There were times he shut down completely, staring at blank canvases with eyes so hollow I thought I'd lose him. He whispered about nights when he couldn't sleep, about dreams that blurred with reality, about voices that told him he was worthless unless he kept painting me. I didn't know if I could save him. Hell, I didn't even know if I should. But I stayed. Even when his obsession scared me. Even when I caught him sketching me while I slept on his couch. Even when I realized he had painted moments of me I hadn't known he'd witnessed, walking home, laughing with friends, standing in the rain. He swore he wasn't stalking. He swore it was just memory. But I wasn't sure which answer terrified me more. Yet through the cracks, something undeniable grew. The night the city lost power, we sat by candlelight in his studio, surrounded by all those painted versions of me. The world outside was dark, but inside, it felt like the two of us were the only people left alive. "I don't deserve you," he whispered, eyes fixed on the flame. "You don't even know me?" I shot back, trying to hide the tremor in my voice. His gaze lifted to mine, burning with something so intense it made my chest ache. "I know enough." And then he kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't careful. It was desperate, messy, the kind of kiss that tasted like fear and hunger and something holy all at once. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. That was the beginning of something neither of us could control. Something beautiful. Something dangerous. Something that would test how much of myself I was willing to give and how much of his darkness I was willing to carry. Because loving Adrian wasn't going to be easy. It was going to be the fight of my life. The kiss should have terrified me. By all accounts, it did. But the moment Adrian's lips crashed against mine, the world fell away. His mouth tasted like paint and bitterness, like someone who had spent too many nights alone in the dark. My heart thudded so violently I thought the canvases around us might shake off the walls. And yet, even with the weight of it, even with the wrongness humming in the air, I kissed him back. When he pulled away, his chest heaving, he looked horrified at himself. "I shouldn't have done that," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. His fingers left streaks of charcoal across his temple. "God, Ethan, don't." I cut him off, though my voice shook. "Don't apologize if you meant it." Silence swelled. A silence that felt more like a living thing than an absence. I could hear the rain hammering against the windows, the candle sputtering, both of our breaths caught in the same fragile rhythm. He stared at me, eyes darker than the storm outside. "I've been painting you for years, imagining this moment. And now it's real. I don't know if I deserve it." "Maybe it's not about deserving," I whispered. That night I didn't go home. The days after blurred together in a haze of color and tension. I found myself in Adrian's studio more often than in my own apartment, surrounded by his half-finished canvases and his mess of brushes. He worked like a man possessed, sometimes forgetting to eat, to sleep, to breathe properly. And I became his anchor, or at least I tried to be. "You're not supposed to live like this," I told him one morning, bringing in greasy takeout breakfast sandwiches. He hadn't left the easel in 12 hours. His hands shook when he took the food, and I saw faint paint stains in the creases of his knuckles that wouldn't wash away. He smirked weakly. "Artists don't live. We just translate." "Bullshit," I said, but my voice was softer than I meant. "You're human. You need to rest." He stared at me, like my concern was something foreign. Then, quietly, he asked, "Why do you care?" I froze. I should have had an answer, but all I could think was that I couldn't stop caring even if I tried. But the more time I spent with him, the more the cracks widened. Adrian had moods, violent swings between frantic passion and devastating emptiness. Some mornings, he'd wake me up with laughter, pulling me into his bed just to trace my face with his fingers like I was a miracle he couldn't believe. Other mornings, I'd find him sitting on the floor, eyes blank, hands limp, surrounded by crumpled sketches he'd torn apart. "Talk to me," I begged once, kneeling beside him. He shook his head. "You wouldn't understand." "Then make me understand." His lips trembled, but no words came out. It was in those moments I felt the danger. That his devotion wasn't love but dependence. That he needed me like a man drowning needed air, and what if I couldn't be enough? The first real crack between us came on a Thursday night. He had called me over urgently, his voice ragged over the phone. When I arrived, the studio was a battlefield, canvases torn off their frames, paint splattered across the walls like blood. "What the hell happened?" I demanded. He stood in the middle of the chaos, shaking, his eyes glassy. "It's wrong," he rasped. "All of it. I can't capture you. I never will. You're slipping away from me." I grabbed his shoulders, trying to steady him. I'm right here, Adrian. I'm not going anywhere. But he shoved me back. Harder than he meant to, maybe, but enough to make me stumble into a broken frame. His face collapsed in horror the moment he realized what he'd done. Ethan, God! I didn't. He reached for me, but I flinched away. For the first time, I saw it clearly. The edge we were dancing on. One wrong move and we'd both fall. I didn't answer his calls for 3 days. It was selfish. It was also necessary. I needed to breathe, to remember who I was outside of him, to figure out if what we had was love, or if it was just another kind of cage. But even in those 3 days, I couldn't stop seeing his face. His hands. The way he'd looked at me like I was the only reason he was still standing. By the 4th day, I was outside his door again. He opened it like he hadn't slept, his eyes rimmed red, his apartment darker than I'd ever seen it. When he saw me, his chest crumpled. "You came back," he whispered, voice breaking. "I shouldn't have," I admitted. "But I did." And then I stepped inside. We didn't talk about the fight right away. Instead, we fell into each other's arms, desperate and clumsy, kissing until we forgot the silence between us. It wasn't healthy. I knew that. But it was real. Later, lying tangled in his sheets, I whispered into the dark, "Why me, Adrian? Out of everyone in this city, why did you choose me?" He pressed his face into my neck. His voice was muffled, broken. "Because you're the only thing that makes me want to stay alive." My chest tightened, a mix of love and fear I didn't know how to separate. From that night forward, things grew heavier. His art shows became more frequent, his fame spreading faster than he could handle. Critics hailed him as a genius, a prodigy who captured raw humanity on canvas. They didn't know his humanity was me, and the more they praised him, the more Adrian spiraled. One evening after a show, I found him slumped in the bathroom, hands shaking so violently he couldn't light his cigarette. His eyes were wild, pupils blown wide. "They don't get it," he hissed. "They think it's about talent. But it's you, Ethan. It's always you. If I lose you, you won't," I said quickly, kneeling down to steady his hands. "You won't lose me." But deep down, I wasn't sure I could keep that promise, because I had started to feel it too, the weight of being someone's everything. And I didn't know if I could carry it forever. The breaking point came one cold night in December. We were walking back from a gallery event, snow slanting sideways under the streetlights. Adrian was quiet, too quiet. When I asked what was wrong, he stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, his expression raw and desperate. "Tell me you love me," he demanded. I froze. His voice wasn't gentle. It was pleading and sharp, like a knife pressed to his own throat. "Adrian, say it," he begged, his hand clutching mine hard enough to hurt. "I need to hear it." My heart slammed against my ribs. The truth was tangled inside me, messy and complicated. I loved him, yes, but I was also terrified of him. Terrified of us. And in that moment, I couldn't say the words. His face shattered. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had ever heard. We walked home without speaking. He locked himself in the studio. I lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of his brush scraping furiously against canvas until dawn. When I finally found the courage to peek inside, my blood ran cold. It was a painting of Mias empty, face cracked like glass, vanishing into the background as if I'd never been real at all. I realized then that if something didn't change, this love would destroy us both. The painting haunted me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw it my own face, hollow and shattered, fading into nothingness. It wasn't just a portrait. It was a warning, prophecy. And for the first time since I had stepped into Adrian's orbit, I wondered if being his muse was going to kill me. The next morning, I left before he woke. I slipped out quietly, careful not to disturb the mess of paintbrushes scattered across the floor. My heart pounded as if I were doing something criminal, as if loving someone too much and fearing them at the same time was a betrayal. The Brooklyn air was sharp with winter, cutting into my lungs as I walked aimlessly through the streets. The city had a way of swallowing people whole, and I wondered if I was just another nameless face destined to vanish. But Adrian had seen me. He had dragged me out of invisibility, and now, that light was burning me alive. I needed distance. I didn't answer his texts for 2 days. They started out soft, almost timid. "Where are you? Are you okay?" Then came the pleading. "Please don't do this. Please come back. I can't work without you." By the 3rd day, they turned frantic, fragmented. "Don't leave me. I'll stop painting. I'll stop everything. Just come back." I turned my phone face down and tried to breathe. But even in silence, he lived inside my chest. By the end of the week, I gave in to the pull. I went back to his studio, half afraid of what I'd find. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of turpentine and despair. Canvases were strewn everywhere, slashed with knives. His masterpiece, the gallery favorite, lay in tatters on the floor. And Adrian sat in the corner, knees pulled to his chest, looking like a boy lost in a storm. His eyes lit up the second he saw me, wide and desperate. "You came back," he breathed, voice cracking. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I didn't come back for good. I just needed to see you." He scrambled up, crossing the room in 3 steps, gripping my arms like I might vanish if he blinked. "Don't say that. Don't say it like you're leaving. I can't," his voice broke. "I can't survive without you, Ethan." And there it was again, that unbearable truth, that I wasn't just a lover to him, I was oxygen. But no one can breathe for someone else forever. We fought that night. It wasn't loud, not at first. It was sharp and cutting like glass underfoot. "You don't even see me," I snapped. "You see an idea, a version of me you invented." "That's not true," he shot back, eyes blazing. "I know you better than anyone. You know the way my face looks when the light hits it. You know the way my smile curves. But do you know my favorite song? Do you know what I'm afraid of when I wake up at 3 a.m.? Do you even care about me? Or just the reflection of me you can capture on a canvas?" He flinched as if I'd struck him. For once, he didn't have an answer. I felt my chest cave in. "Adrian, this isn't love. This is obsession. And I don't know if I can live like this." His eyes shone wet, furious, devastated. "Don't say that. Don't call it obsession. You think I want this? You think I chose to see you everywhere I look? I can't help it, Ethan. You're the only thing that feels real." I stared at him, trembling, torn between anger and heartbreak. Maybe that's the problem. The next few weeks unraveled us. I tried to pull back, tried to carve out space for myself. Nights at my apartment instead of his, days without answering his calls. I told myself it was for his sake as much as mine. But Adrian only clung harder. He'd show up outside my job, sketchbook in hand, waiting for me. He'd send me half-finished paintings at 3 in the morning, begging for my opinion. Once, he showed up at my apartment in the pouring rain, drenched and shaking, just to say, "I couldn't stand not seeing you today." My friends started noticing. "Ethan, this isn't normal," my roommate Jordan said one night, watching me pace the kitchen. "The guy's talented, sure, but he's also unstable. You're not his boyfriend, you're his lifeline. That's too much for one person to carry." "I know," I muttered, dragging a hand through my hair. "I know. But when he looks at me like that, I can't walk away." Jordan's gaze softened. "Then one of 2 things is gonna happen. You're gonna save him, or he's gonna drown you with him." The turning point came in January. Adrian had been invited to a major exhibition in Manhattan, a chance that could launch him into international fame. He begged me to come. "I need you there," he whispered, his hands trembling as he straightened his tie. "I can't do this without you." The gallery was glittering, packed with critics and patrons. Champagne glasses clinked, conversations buzzed, and everywhere, Adrian's work loomed wall after wall of me. It was suffocating. People stared at me, whispered, pointed. They recognized me from the canvases, like I was part of the exhibit, a living artwork, a curiosity. I tried to smile, tried to stand proud, but the weight of their eyes crushed me. When Adrian's speech began, he clutched the microphone like a lifeline. His gaze found me instantly, burning across the crowd. My work, he said, voice steady but soft, exists because of one person. Without him, there would be nothing. He is my muse, my reason, my everything. The room applauded, but my chest constricted, because every word felt like another chain binding me to him. That night, after the show, I broke. I can't do this anymore, I said in his studio, my voice shaking. Adrian froze. What do you mean? I mean, I can't be the center of your universe. I can't carry your entire existence on my shoulders. It's killing me, Adrian. His face drained of color. No, don't say that. You don't mean it. I do, I whispered. I love you, but love shouldn't feel like this. Love shouldn't feel like drowning. He stumbled back, like I'd stabbed him. His breathing grew shallow, his hands clutching at his chest. If you leave, I'll fall apart. I'll disappear. Tears stung my eyes, but I held my ground. Then maybe you need to learn how to stand on your own. That was the night I walked out. His voice followed me down the hall, raw and breaking. Ethan, don't leave me. Please, please, you're all I have. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from sobbing, and I didn't look back. But love is cruel. Even as I tried to move on, even as I cut the strings tying us together, I couldn't stop feeling him. His ghost lingered in every corner of my life. I saw him in strangers on the train, in reflections in the glass, in the quiet ache of my own heartbeat. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over, because some bonds aren't broken by distance. They're brokener saved by choice. And sooner or later I'd have to choose. Winter turned to spring, but the distance between us didn't thaw. I threw myself into work, into late nights with friends, into pretending that I wasn't still haunted by him. Yet no matter how far I ran, Adrian clung to me in memory. His voice echoed in my quiet apartment. His hands still lingered in mine when I dreamed. I wanted freedom, but I also wanted him, and those two wants tore me apart. 3 months after I left, a letter arrived. Not a text, not a call. A real letter, folded carefully, paint smudges along the edges. My name written in his jagged handwriting. Inside, a single page. Ethan, if you never want to see me again, I'll understand. I've been trying to paint without you, and it feels like dragging my hands through glass. But I'm learning. For the first time, I'm painting things that aren't you. It hurts, but maybe that's the point. Maybe love isn't supposed to be possession. Maybe it's supposed to be letting someone breathe. Still, every brushstroke feels like it belongs to you. You'll always be in my work, whether you want to be or not. Because you're not just my muse. You're my beginning, my proof that I can feel. Adrian, I stared at the words until my vision blurred. Something inside me cracked open, something I thought I'd buried. Because for the first time, Adrian wasn't asking me to save him. He was showing me that maybe, just maybe, he could save himself. I went to his studio the next day. The door opened to a place that felt different, brighter. The chaos was still there, but the canvases no longer screamed with desperation. Instead, they breathed. Cityscapes, strangers, abstractions of light. And yes, pieces of me still lingered, but they weren't cages anymore. They were fragments, memories. Adrian stood at the easel, paint on his hands, hair tied back messily. When he saw me, his brush clattered to the floor. Ethan, he whispered, as if afraid the name might vanish if he said it too loud. Hey, I said softly, got your letter. He swallowed hard, searching my face. And you came back. I nodded. My chest tightened, but this time not from fear, from something tender. I wanted to see if it was real, if you were changing. He let out a shaky laugh, equal parts relief and disbelief. I'm trying. God, I'm trying. I stepped closer. The air between us felt fragile, like glass. Adrian, I can't be your whole world. I need to be your partner, not your lifeline. His eyes glistened. I know. I don't want to chain you anymore. I just want to walk beside you. If you'll let me. The silence stretched, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was hopeful. I smiled, small but real. Then let's try again. But slow. honest, healthy. His hand trembled as he reached for mine. Slow, he repeated, as though tasting the word for the first time. When our fingers laced together, it didn't feel like drowning. Felt like breathing. The months that followed were not perfect. We stumbled. We argued. There were nights Adrian still slipped into old patterns, drowning in self-doubt. There were days I wanted to run when the pressure grew too sharp. But this time we faced it differently. We talked. We fought through the silence instead of hiding inside it. Adrian started therapy. I started trusting that love didn't have to mean losing myself. And slowly, painfully, beautiful I began to rebuild. One summer evening, we sat on the roof of his building, watching the city lights flicker awake. Adrian rested his head against my shoulder, the warmth of him grounding me in a way that felt steady, not consuming. You know what I realized? He murmured. What? That my best paintings aren't of you. He smiled, eyes on the skyline. They're the ones I painted after you left, when I thought I'd lost you forever, because they taught me that even without you, I could still exist. And when you came back, it wasn't because I begged. It was because you chose me. I turned to look at him, heart full. And I'll keep choosing you, as long as you keep choosing yourself too. He kissed me then, not desperate, not broken, just soft, certain. For once, it didn't feel like a storm, felt like sunrise. Years later, one of Adrian's paintings would hang in a museum. Not of me, not directly, but of two figures sitting side by side on a rooftop, their shoulders touching, the city glowing beneath them. The plaque would read simply, breathing together. And that was what we had become. Not muse and artist, not obsession and escape. Just two men, flawed and fragile, learning every day how to love without losing themselves. And maybe that was the real masterpiece all along. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.